Shutdown, the wall, important hearings today. That is weird not having.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Greetings, Kimisabis. Thank you for tuning in. The State of the State, if you're watching the show at 7:30, probably wrapping up as we speak. And if you're watching at midnight, you may have seen it earlier because we record our programs in the early afternoon each day. We will be unable to discuss the State of the State, even though I got some previews that really didn't float my boat much. We are going to talk about the governor here in a second. We will cover the State of the State and all its important points on tomorrow's show. All right, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I have Professor Joe Cammarano here from Providence College, and he's got a new look. So this is going to be a brand. I don't know that the thoughts are new because it's been quite the slog here with this Trump administration, all we're dealing with now, but I'm looking forward to getting his contemporary thoughts on some of the things that are happening as we speak. But first, let me check in on a couple of local issues. Specifically, this was not a surprise to me. The commissioner of education here is reportedly on his way out. And doggone it, we should have showed that video of him throwing the chair from earlier a couple of months ago, not even, about 6 weeks ago. My bad, I didn't even remember to think about that. But I remember when he did that here on the program. I might bring that up tomorrow because it's going to be an issue that the State of the State might touch on, education, you know. But when he did that here in jest, it told me that his screws were a little loose, not in terms of being crazy, but in terms of just being like, you know what, sometimes when you make a decision that you're moving on or you just get a little looser. And I thought to myself, that was so out of character for him. Education leadership in this state is a brutal task. Those who have their own points of view fight for them like crazy, including the education unions who, while they mouth a good game, don't really come to play for the bigger picture. And now that we see the RICAS numbers versus the MCAS numbers, we're going to have to see whether or not everyone's going to get intellectually honest and put their cards on the table and do a group effort to get this thing back on track or on track for the first time. He looks like not to be the guy to do that. Whether it's his own choice or whether he's being pushed out, still to be determined. We'll take a look at it. In the meantime, I think the governor was high when she made this decision over the weekend. Of course, that's an opinion. That's not something I've learned. But the way she did it tells me that maybe she was. Or, like I said on the radio yesterday, maybe she lost a quarters game, you know. Maybe she lost a bet, you know. Maybe she had one too many beers and decided, you know what, instead of having a drink of beer, I'll make marijuana legal here in the state. And the reason I say that is that, surprisingly, you know, the people who are kind of important when it comes to these issues like cops, law enforcement, attorney general, not consulted. The Police Chiefs Association, very upset. You know, let's put it this way, they're using diplomacy. But Sid Wardell, the former Little Compton police chief and executive director of the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association, was on the radio with me yesterday on WPRO, and we kind of chuckled, sort of, over the idea that nobody asked them.
I mean, are you concerned about the speed of this timetable?
Yeah, I mean, if you can read into our statement at all,
yes, I
we
can.
were not brought into this conversation at all, and so we are now making sure that we are inserting ourselves into this conversation. I was at the State House today to make sure that I could have a conversation with whoever was going to listen to help me understand what it was that the governor is proposing, and that we were frustrated in the fact that we hadn't been a part of it.
It is amazing to me. The governor comes up with $14.5 million of gross revenue projection for fiscal year 2020 and a net of $6.5 million. So she's got her own idea on expenses. She's got this, you know, marijuana czar working in her bureaucracy right now, and he's going to work the whole thing out. It is embarrassing embarrassing that she would even float this idea and any kind of formality without having a consultation with law enforcement in the state about the rules, the regs, and what their concerns are about this. And there's so many holes and loopholes and problems in current law, even with the medical marijuana thing, that I just don't understand. Obviously, she wasn't high, but she's acting like it, and I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe she's also carefree now that she doesn't have an election to deal with. All right, let's talk about the issues of the day that are important. Obviously, the shutdown continues. Headlines here, and here's the latest from the network.
I will never, ever back down.
President Trump says Democrats are playing politics as the partial government shutdown enters its 25th day.
They're only doing this because of the 2020 election.
Both sides have refused to budge over $5.7 billion for a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border.
He'll bluster, mislead, storm out of meetings until he gets what he wants.
800,000 federal employees are working without pay or furloughed, and that includes much of the White House staff. So when the Clemson Tigers came to celebrate their college football national championship, the president bought the food.
We have Big Macs, we have Quarter Pounders with cheese, we have everything that I like that you like.
The effects of the shutdown are more serious around the country, including at airports.
We are going to see lengthier and lengthier flight delays as the staffing issues become worse.
On Monday, the TSA said its employees who missed a paycheck on Friday called out sick at more than double the usual rate.
You know, it's chaos out here. This line, I've been here about 15 minutes, and it probably moved about 2 feet.
The agency says it will move officers around the country to deal with the shortages.
All right, Joe Cammarano is here to talk about the shutdown, but, rewind the tape. By the way, Sid Wardell from the Police Chiefs Association, what camera am I on, over here? Will be here Thursday evening. You disagree with me?
Yeah, actually.
Get out.
Happy
New Year, by the way. Good to see you.
Happy New Year. I think that the police chiefs definitely need a role, and it's vital for them to have a say. But why should they have the first crack at the proposal as opposed to engage once the proposal is made? They're administrators. Their job is to implement and enforce the law, not to make it. That's a legislative job. That's an executive job. So they can be part of that discussion, but they don't have any more of a right to think that they should do it than I do.
Do what?
Decide whether or not the governor is going to propose something.
If I'm the governor of the state and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger on recreational marijuana.
Sure.
I'm going to inform myself with everybody that I need to inform myself with and have a consultation with everybody, including law enforcement, to make sure that I got my P's and Q's in order, especially when I'm putting money in the budget for 2020. I'm not saying that they should have had a veto roll over it. I'm suggesting they should have an informed discussion. And by the way, there are holes in the current legislation on medical marijuana that prevent them from doing some important basic things on the road right now.
Absolutely, and the governor proposes a change in legislation. It doesn't happen until it goes through the normal process where every stakeholder gets their say, police as well as citizens. So I think they should just engage from this point on.
Legislation. She's putting a number in the budget.
She's forecasting that it will be passed. That's right.
No, she's not even forecasting that it'll be passed. When asked how this will end up becoming law and whether the General Assembly would pass it, you know what she said yesterday?
What's that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, remember
whether it would be a law passed by the General Assembly or whether it would be a referendum to the general public.
Look, the reality is she's right. She keeps saying we have Connecticut on one side, we have Massachusetts on the other. We can't fall behind these states. Massachusetts has already moved because the citizens pushed it, and Rhode Island's going to have to act at some point in time anyway. And again, why not start the ball now?
She says this is about safety. Would you consult law enforcement to inform your proposal?
As you're writing the law. No. The first crack is, I think we should change the policy. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. And that's where the chiefs definitely have a vital central role. But not while she's ruminating on the idea or proposing it. That's what the governor's job is. It's to legislate.
I didn't realize that.
Let the committee structure in the state legislature deal with that.
I got to take a political science class at Providence College because I didn't realize that creating a budget and offering this major initiative is ruminating. I didn't realize it was kind of like, hey, I was just thinking out loud. Don't worry about it.
Well, you're like most Americans, though. You think that the governor writes the budget. The governor doesn't write the budget. The governor proposes a budget, and then it's up to the legislature to decide what extent of the governor's proposal is going to get enacted into law.
The governor proposes a budget hopefully informed on that what she wants or he wants to do.
Right. She's setting
and
the
leads
agenda
through the process.
Yeah, that's the agenda-setting role of the budget and of the governor in general in proposing legislation.
So
it's now the
Governor,
Assembly's
you put
job.
$14 million in on an idea for legalized marijuana recreationally. Have you thought about how you get to that number? And B, have you consulted with important players, the medical community, the psychological community, the law enforcement community, the whatever community is
all of those
necessary
players are
in order to inform? And the answer is not yet or no.
Right, because this is setting the agenda to then write the law.
So what other brainstorms do you think are responsible for a CEO of a state to come in and just kind of go, hey, you know, I was thinking.
Full-day pre-K. She's not going to write the details of full-day pre-K, which is one thing.
But she needs to be informed as to what the benefits of full-day pre-K are with people who are experts in the field.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So before you propose full-day pre-K, you better have been pretty well seminared.
The reality is we're in a wave. We call it a policy window is open across states. States have begun to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. If Rhode Island waits a year or two or three, it's going to be on the back end of that, and she's decided she wants to be in the front.
You didn't hear me say that we shouldn't be considering this and that we don't have competitive issues and or pressure from other states and what they're doing to force our hand. But when you decide to make it a formal initiative, you should check all your bases.
And how do you get the ball rolling to consider it? You propose
Especially when you've got a track record of not checking the bases and leaving law enforcement hanging out there with the current medical marijuana laws where they are confused and having problems doing their jobs.
And again, marijuana has always been a problem for police because it's classified in a way that makes it almost impossible for the police to do their job well, and it makes it very difficult. And so it's an issue that has to be sort of hashed out, and it's going to be hashed out now that she's proposed it.
All right then. We shall agree to disagree when we come back. The local delegation, powerful stuff yesterday on the shutdown. Stay with us. 1 minute.
This is disgraceful. It's unnecessary. In my view, it's being done to distract from a couple of very bad weeks by this administration. When the president said, I want to shut the government down, I think he was very clear about what he wanted to do, and it was in part to distract from the real challenges the administration faces.
We haven't seen much of Leader McConnell. He's become sort of the Punxsutawney Phil of the shutdown crisis, down in his groundhog hole, refusing to do anything, refusing to call up bills, and it's time for our Republican colleagues to root him out of his hole before we get to actual Groundhog Day and let the Senate do its business.
All right, between our package from the network and the commentary yesterday at the airport where Jim Langevin, the congressman, brought Congressman Cicilline, Senator Whitehouse, and Reid together along with labor leaders to talk about the current status of the shutdown. What's your take on where we are with that right now?
I'm not optimistic at all about the government reopening. I don't see a way out. I don't see a way out. There will be a way out, but I think at this point they've dug in their heels. For the Democrats to even compromise on Trump, maybe compromise more than halfway, is probably not a good long-term strategy legislatively. And for Trump, he's got that personality where he's made his position and he's going to win. And that's the only thing that matters to him is winning. He doesn't care what happens to the government. He wants to win. And he can't win by compromising.
Well, I'll give the president a little bit of credit, something that I don't often do. I mean, he has been using the term barrier more than a wall. This $5.6 billion is really no more than about 260, 270 miles of wall at max, or barrier. I think the mythology of a Chinese wall, running 2,000 miles, adding to the 700 miles of steel, of fencing, bad fencing, good fencing wall that we have,
right.
Is what the base still believes this is going to be. But I think to his credit, he's kind of weaned off of that. Yet for some reason, he thinks now the bargaining chip is the shutdown. The shutdown being remedied will be a result of a compromise. That's not part of the compromise.
Yeah,
the compromise is going to have to be on what are we doing at the border.
I think that's right. I do think that President Trump has tried to find wiggle room within his firm stance, but I'm not sure he's equipped to deal with people who have a role in his well-being politically. That, you know, if the government continues to be shut down, it's going to hurt a lot of people, but it's also going to hurt the executive branch. And if it hurts the executive branch, it hurts the presidency. I don't think he comprehends that because he hasn't paid too much attention to government, you know, in his adult life. I think he's trying, but he's trying again in that old mold that he's used to, and that's in real estate, where he figures he can get a bargain somehow, and he eventually gets there, and he's assuming that's going to happen now. I don't see it.
Well, we got a headline at the bottom of my page here, Eric. It said the Trump polls sag. I mean, it's starting. It's even Rasmussen's got him down 7 or 8 points from where they had him, and that's a very favorable poll to the president. He may or may not be able to react to that over time here. Democrats, though, I don't know what their loss would be if they made a really profound, we're ready to do something for DACA. We are ready to take the president off the hook, give him his steel barrier for 245 miles. We want DACA. We want a couple of the immigration law changes, and we're ready to do that. I mean, they've already got $1.3 billion for border security in their repeat proposal. Right. It seems to me that would be something that they could be magnanimous in some kind of way and do.
It could be. I actually think Senator McConnell is the key here. I think
the hole, as Senator White House
he's
says.
Supposedly in the metaphorical hole is because he doesn't trust the president. I don't think this is about striking deals with Democrats. He just wants Trump to know, I don't trust you.
Meaning, yeah, if he goes in there with a deal, he doesn't know if he comes out speaking the same language as the president.
That's exactly right, because he thought he had that.
Well, do you think, Joe? Do you think this is really in your wheelhouse here? Do you think that his staying out of bringing this to a head? I mean, he could bring a vote to a head anytime he wants to. Sheldon Whitehouse was telling me that he thinks that there's a clear override majority, you know, in the Senate right now to get this thing done. Is it the chronic fear of Trump base lashing out against establishment Republicans that motivates him to be quiet on this thing, to be tepid, or just the belief that he's not going to be in line with the president if he goes ahead and sticks his head in the guillotine and be on the same page?
Well, I think that's the point.
You think the latter one prevails, not to worry about the base?
Yeah, I don't think McConnell's worried about the base, although he is up for re-election in 2020. But I think McConnell had what you said in terms of he wants to make sure that he's not going to be the sacrifice, that he's not going to be disappointed again. I think he was furious from what I've read about the last time in December, and he's not going to do that again. And so when he gets 100% assurance, he'll come out, he'll look like a hero, it'll look like the Senate is acting like an institution in relation to the presidency again. And so I think McConnell's just waiting until it's his opportunity to look better.
So you think he is the linchpin?
Yes.
But you're not holding your breath?
I'm not holding my breath. And I don't know, you know, again, this is my current theme. I just don't know, because the variables are so different than they normally are.
Right. And we have a new Attorney General most likely stepping into place. We'll talk about the impact of that when we come back. Stay with us.
I believe it is vitally important that the special counsel be allowed to complete his investigation. I have known Bob Mueller for 30 years. We worked closely together throughout my previous tenure at the Department of Justice. We've been friends since, and I have the utmost respect for Bob and his distinguished record of public service. I am not going to do anything that I think is wrong, and I will not be bullied into doing anything I think is wrong by anybody, whether it be editorial boards or Congress or the president. I'm going to do what I think is right.
Here's what he did say today. He said that he will not support the administration rewriting the Mueller report before it's released. I thought that was important.
Right.
But he is not saying that the special counsel has carte blanche in terms of how he goes about his business and what he recommends and or what's in the report. And I think the Democrats who are pushing on this and going back to Watergate know the difference, which is that a special prosecutor, a la Elliot Richardson, Attorney General Elliot Richardson supporting the special prosecutor, that law has changed since 1973, right? So this guy's got a little bit less by statute. Right?
Absolutely. You know, he's a quintessential Washington attorney, and he likes to play by the rules, just like Robert Mueller. And I think that you're going to find little gaps, but that the rules are the rules, and he's going to enforce them. And when there's uncertainty, assume it's going to be to the position of the executive branch.
Because he thinks the executive branch has, he views the Constitution with serious executive branch power.
That's right.
Yet, I don't know what deference he brings to the executive branch in the midst of this turmoil. Everything the president does, it seems, is a no-no on this. And so I don't know how much reset the president gets for legitimate executive behavior and/or consideration, blah, blah.
Well, I see Barr as kind of the generals 2.0. Remember how the generals were going to keep Trump under control?
Right.
And they're all gone?
Yeah, they're all gone.
This is attempt number 2.
Well, how far do you think it'll be before he gets the clock cleaned like Sessions did from the president?
Oh, well, my guess is Trump might be a little bit afraid of him initially, but it might take 3 months.
Yeah. I got a theory. I only got a minute here. This guy's 68 years old. He's done his deal. He doesn't seem to need this gig. I got a feeling like he's in there almost as if it's Clint Eastwood and kind of the Wild Wild West. I got a funny feeling this might be the worst decision Donald Trump ever made, that he might just go, you know what? I'm the guy that's going to clean this place up.
Unlike your initial view today, I agree 100% with you.
Be still my heart. No, seriously, I have a funny feeling that this guy's going to be like, hey, let me just get through this confirmation
I think he's a dedicated
stuff.
Professional, and dedicated
And
professionals
he respects
are afraid.
Mueller.
Yeah.
And he respects Mueller.
That's right.
And while others are very worried that he won't recuse, just because he won't recuse doesn't mean the outcomes aren't going to be the correct outcomes,
That's
correct?
right. Someone's got to save this country, and it's not going to be Donald Trump. It's going to be people like Robert Mueller and William Barr.
So you're with me on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, he's supposed to go into this with a clean slate, but I don't know how anybody could come into this with a clean slate and without an opinion or more or less a predicted direction.
Yeah, I think he's going to realize by day 2 that what he thought he was getting is not what he's getting.
Even as informed a guy and a former attorney general like him?
Yes.
Huh. It's been a hell of a ride, huh? Like the look, by the way.
Thanks.
Standing. Joe Cammarano. Be right back. Listen, Cammarano will never appear on this show again after that first. I'm kidding. You know, I'm glad. I enjoy getting a different opinion and a little bit of a battle on the issues that are so important. I believe firmly that the governor has an absolute responsibility to include everybody's expertise before she makes a proposal for legalizing marijuana on an educational or a recreational basis. I'll hold firm to that. We'll see what comes up after the State of the State and talk about it tomorrow, and of course right here on the radio at 3 until 6 on WPRO. You have a great night. Good night.